Elias Vorn learned the sound of silence the night Mara left. It was not loud. It was not dramatic. It was the quiet after the door closed, the kind that pressed against the walls and made the air feel heavy. The small apartment above Dock Ring 7 suddenly felt too big, even though it had always been too small for two people and their dreams. He stood near the window for a long time, watching ships drift past the station's transparent hull. Cargo haulers, patrol cruisers, corporate liners full of people who never had to worry about choosing between love and survival. Mara had packed quickly. She always did things efficiently, even when she ended a relationship. "This isn't about you," she had said, her voice calm but tired. "It's about reality." Elias remembered the way she avoided his eyes when she said it. Humans had limits, she believed. Real ones. No matter how talented they were, no matter how hard they worked, the galaxy had already decided their place. Corporations owned the lanes. Councils owned the laws. Independent humans were tolerated at best, erased at worst. She wanted safety. A contract job planetside, a predictable future. Elias wanted something else. He just hadn't known what it was yet. When the door finally sealed behind her, he did not chase her. He didn't shout. He didn't beg. He just listened to the silence and felt something inside him loosen, like a knot that had been pulled too tight for too long. The next morning, he went to Dock Ring 12. Dock Ring 12 was where forgotten ships went to die. Old exploration frames, damaged scouts, vessels stripped of anything valuable and left floating until someone needed spare metal. Most people walked past without looking. Elias stopped. The ship was ugly. Its hull was scratched and dull, its nameplate half burned away. The registry showed dozens of owners, most of them corporate shells. It had failed surveys, abandoned missions, and more red flags than green ones. But Elias saw something else. He saw space. Not the empty kind, but the kind full of possibility. The broker laughed when Elias asked about it. "That thing," the broker said, "it barely qualifies as spaceworthy." "I don't need pretty," Elias replied. "I need independent." The price was impossible, not in credits alone but in requirements. The broker wanted assets, contracts, shared property rights, everything that tied Elias to station life, including the cohabitation bond he still shared with Mara. Elias hesitated for exactly 1 minute. In that minute, he remembered every argument about risk. Every time Mara told him humans survived best by staying small. Every dream he had put away because it didn't fit into her version of the future. Then he signed. The bond dissolved. The assets transferred. The ship became his. When Elias stepped onto the ship for the first time, it smelled like old metal and dust. The lights flickered. The systems groaned awake like they were surprised to be needed again. He smiled. He named it the Wayfarer. The next 6 months were the hardest of his life. He slept on the floor more often than in a bunk. He fixed wiring with parts scavenged from junkyards and favors owed. He rewrote navigation software because alien-designed systems assumed reaction times humans did not have. Most species built ships that thought for them. Elias built a ship that trusted him. He added manual overrides everywhere. Redundant systems stacked on top of redundant systems. If something failed, a human could still make it work with skill and stubbornness. Other engineers laughed when they saw his designs. "That's inefficient," they said. "That's unnecessary," they said. Elias just nodded and kept working. When the Wayfarer finally left the dock under its own power, no one cheered. No official marked the moment. The station didn't care, but Elias felt it. For the first time in his life, he was moving because he chose to. The jobs came slowly at first. Small courier runs. Data transfers other ships didn't want. Repair assistance in places too remote or too risky for corporate crews. Elias never refused a job because it was strange. He refused jobs that felt wrong. Aliens noticed him not because he was fast or heavily armed, but because he adapted. When a system failed mid-flight, he didn't panic. He rerouted. He climbed into access shafts. He made decisions without waiting for permission. To many species, this was unsettling. To humans, it was normal. The wayfarer earned a quiet reputation, not famous, not infamous, just reliable in ways algorithms couldn't predict. 3 years passed. Elias barely noticed. Then the patrol ship intercepted him near a neutral relay. The message was polite, official, unavoidable. He was charged with unauthorized influence on non-aligned systems. The accusation made little sense. He hadn't forced anyone to do anything. He had helped. He had fixed things. He had shown people options. That apparently was enough. The trial was short. The evidence was long and carefully worded. Elias didn't argue much. He had learned that systems rarely listen to individuals. The sentence was exile to a multi-species correctional station. No ship, no contracts, no outside contact beyond approved channels. When they escorted him onto the transport, Elias felt calm. He had lost before. He knew the feeling. As the transport locked into jump, an officer glanced at a data pad and paused. "You know one of the station liaisons?" the officer asked. Elias frowned. "No," the officer shrugged. "Name S. Mara Cade." The silence that followed was different from the one 3 years ago. This one was sharp. The transport jumped, and somewhere ahead the past waited for him again. The prison station did not look like a prison. From the outside it looked clean, calm, almost gentle. Smooth silver curves, soft white lights, and wide observation windows made it appear more like a research hub than a place where unwanted people were sent. That was the first lie. Elias Vorn felt it the moment he stepped inside. The air was too quiet. Not peaceful, but controlled. Sounds were dampened, lights never flickered. The floor seemed to absorb footsteps. Everything worked exactly as designed, and that made his skin crawl. He stood in line with others from different species. Tall ones, wide ones. Ones with too many eyes or not enough. They all stood still, obedient, silent. Elias noticed something strange. No one spoke, not even quietly. The processing chamber scanned him from head to toe. A soft voice announced his name, species, and offense in a neutral tone, as if it were reading weather data. Unauthorized influence on non-aligned systems. Still sounded ridiculous. His personal items were taken. His clothes replaced with neutral gray fabric that had no pockets and no shape. His identification chip was removed and replaced with a station tag that tracked location, vitals, and emotional indicators. That last part made him frown. "Emotional indicators?" he asked the intake officer. The officer did not look up. "For wellness monitoring." Elias did not argue. He had learned when questions were pointless. His cell was not a cell. It was a room, a bed fixed to the floor, a table. A wall screen that displayed schedules and reminders. No doors, just a transparent energy barrier that activated silently. No bars. No locks you could see. Another lie. The first night, Elias slept badly, not because of fear, but because of the feeling that something was missing. He realized it was noise. No distant engines, no voices, no random station life. Only silence and soft reminders telling him when to eat, when to rest, when to reflect. Reflect. That word appeared often. On the third day, he saw her. He was seated in a common area designed for low-stimulation interaction. A few inmates sat far apart, staring at walls or screens. No one talked. The system discouraged unnecessary communication. Then the room changed. Not physically, but emotionally. Elias felt it before he saw her. A tightening in his chest. A familiar weight. Mara Cade walked in with two station officials. She wore a light blue liaison uniform. Clean, perfect, official. Her hair was shorter now, her posture straighter. She looked older, not in years, but in certainty. She stopped when she saw him. For a moment the perfect control cracked. Elias stood slowly. He did not smile, he did not look away. "Mara," he said. "Elias," she replied. The officials exchanged looks and stepped aside. You have prior association, one of them said. This meeting is approved for assessment purposes. Assessment. Another lie wrapped in polite words. They sat across from each other at a table that was too smooth to grip. For a moment, neither spoke. You look, Mara began, then stopped. She cleared her throat. You look stable. Elias almost laughed. He didn't. You look important, he said instead, her lips pressed together. This is a serious facility. I can tell. She looked around the room, then back at him. This place is designed to help individuals regain balance. Elias tilted his head. By taking away everything that makes them who they are, her eyes flickered, just slightly. You always had a way with words, she said. And you always had a way of avoiding the point, he replied, not unkindly. She studied him now, really studied him. Not the inmate tag, not the vitals scrolling on her wrist screen, him. You shouldn't be here, she said quietly. Yet, Elias replied, here I am. Over the next weeks, Mara met with him often. Officially, she was assigned to monitor human adaptation in the prison. Unofficially, she was trying to understand how the man she once loved had ended up as a problem the galaxy wanted contained. Elias noticed things she didn't at first. Humans were struggling more than other species. Not loudly, not violently, just slowly fading. They sat too still, spoke too little, followed rules too perfectly. The system thought this meant success. Elias knew better. He started small. He began asking questions during approved interaction periods. Simple ones, about hobbies, about skills, about what people missed. At first, others hesitated. The system discouraged personal sharing. Emotional spikes triggered alerts. So Elias adjusted. He spoke calmly, slowly. He framed everything as problem-solving. If you had to fix a broken tool without instructions, he asked one human engineer, how would you start? The man's eyes lit up before he caught himself. That light spread. Soon, small groups formed, quiet ones. They talked about solutions, not rebellion, just coping, how to think, how to remember who they were. Aliens watched. They did not interfere. They did not understand what they were seeing. Mara noticed changes in the reports. Human emotional stability was rising, but not in the expected way. Variability increased. Creativity markers spiked. Social bonding indicators appeared where there should have been none. She confronted Elias about it. You're influencing them, she said. Yes, he replied simply. That's exactly why you're here. No, Elias said. I'm here because someone was afraid of what happens when humans remember they're human. She looked at him for a long time. You traded me for a ship, she said suddenly. Elias blinked. I didn't trade you, he said. I chose something you didn't believe in. That ship made you a target. That ship made me myself. Silence stretched between them. I was assigned here because of you, Mara admitted. They thought I could predict you. Can you? Elias asked. She hesitated. I don't know anymore. The review council arrived a month later. They were not cruel, that was the worst part. They were calm, logical, and very certain they were right. They reviewed data, charts, trends. Human inmates were changing the system without breaking rules. That scared them. Elias was summoned. Mara stood behind the council during the hearing. You have altered behavioral patterns, one counselor said. Explain. I talked, Elias replied. Talking is regulated. I talked within regulation. You encouraged emotional expression. I encouraged problem-solving. The counselors exchanged signals. You represent a risk, another said. Not because you are violent, but because you are effective. Mara's hands clenched. We will decide whether isolation is necessary, the lead counselor said. Your liaison may testify. All eyes turned to Mara. Elias did not look at her. He already knew the truth. She stood slowly, and for the first time in years she stopped choosing safety. He is not the problem, she said. The room stilled. The system is, she continued. Humans do not break under pressure. They adapt. They connect. When you remove that, you don't get obedience. You get decay. The council listened. They did not like what they heard, but they heard it. Mara met Elias' eyes. I left you because I was afraid, she said. Not of you, of believing in something bigger. The decision was delayed. For the first time, the system hesitated, and Elias smiled just a little, because hesitation meant change was possible. The council did not give its decision quickly. That alone was strange. In a system built on certainty and schedules, delay meant doubt. Elias noticed it in the small changes around the station. Meetings were postponed. Observation teams increased. New questions appeared on inmate screens, asking about motivation, purpose, and identity. Questions the system had never asked before. Elias remained in his room most of the time, but it did not feel like isolation. Messages arrived from other inmates, humans and non-humans alike. They were careful messages, framed as problem analysis or system feedback, but Elias could read between the lines. They were thinking again. They were feeling again. Mara visited him one evening, long after official hours. The lights in the corridor were dimmed to night cycle levels. Her footsteps sounded louder than usual, like the station itself was listening. "You caused a problem," she said as she sat across from him. Elias smiled slightly. "That's one way to say it." "They don't know what to do with you," she continued. "You didn't break rules, you didn't organize rebellion, you didn't threaten anyone." "I just existed," Elias said. "You reminded them that systems are made for people," Mara replied, "not the other way around." She looked tired, not the controlled fatigue she used to carry, but something deeper, honest. "I used to believe safety was the highest goal," she said. "If nothing went wrong, then everything was right." "And now?" Elias asked. "And now I see how wrong that was." Outside the observation window, a transport ship drifted slowly past. For a moment, Elias imagined the wayfarer out there, moving freely, responding to his hands. "I don't regret choosing the ship," he said quietly, "but I did regret losing you, for a long time." Mara swallowed. "I regret not understanding what you were trying to build." The final hearing came without ceremony. No audience, no announcements, just Elias, the council, and Mara standing off to the side, not as a liaison this time, but as a witness. The lead counselor spoke first. "You represent an anomaly," they said, "not because you disobeyed, but because you revealed weaknesses we preferred to ignore." Elias said nothing. "Your influence has spread beyond expectation," another counselor added. "Other facilities are requesting human-based adaptation models." Mara's eyes widened slightly. "This was not your intention," the lead counselor continued, "but intent does not change outcome." "So what happens now?" Elias asked. The council paused. "We release you," the lead counselor said. The word echoed in the room. "You will be monitored," they added quickly. "Your activities restricted. Your vessel—" "My ship," Elias interrupted, "has been held under review," the counselor finished. "It will be returned." Elias closed his eyes for a moment, not because he won, but because the system had blinked first. Mara exhaled, a breath she had been holding for years. The release process was simple. No celebration, no apology. Elias received his old clothes, slightly worn but clean. His station tag was removed. The invisible weight he had carried since arrival lifted slowly, like pressure easing after a long dive. As he walked through the docking ring, people watched him, not with fear, with curiosity. Humans nodded to him. Aliens studied him openly now. The wayfarer waited at the far end of the dock. It looked the same, scarred, uneven, perfect. Elias placed his hand on the hull, feeling the familiar warmth of metal that had been shaped by work and care. "She's been upgraded," Mara said beside him. He turned, surprised. "By who?" he asked. "By everyone who studied her," Mara replied. "Your designs changed how they think about redundancy, about trust between pilot and machine." Elias laughed softly. "Figures." They stood there for a while, neither rushing to speak. "Where will you go?" Mara asked. "Where I'm needed," Elias said. "Where rules are rigid and people are tired of pretending they don't feel." She nodded. "I can't follow you," she said. "I know," Elias replied. But I can stop standing in your way, she added. That mattered more than either of them said out loud. Elias boarded the Wayfarer alone. As the systems came online, familiar sounds filled the cockpit. Not perfect, not silent, alive. As the ship pulled away from the station, Elias looked back one last time. The prison station still stood there clean and calm, but inside it something had shifted. People remembered themselves. The galaxy did not change overnight, it never did, but stories spread, quiet ones. About a human who lost love, lost freedom, and still built something that forced the universe to reconsider its assumptions. Humans were not dangerous because they were violent. They were dangerous because they endured. They adapted. They built meaning where systems offered none. And once that idea took root, it could not be contained. The Wayfarer jumped into open space, carrying Elias forward, not away from the past but beyond it. Not running, choosing.